All right, welcome back to the channel. It's your boy Fanon, and in this video, we're going to talk about the welterweight divisions, specifically Keith Thurman finally fessing up that he knows who Jaron Ennis is and answering some questions that brought up the great Floyd Mayweather Jr. Let's talk about that in this video. Welcome back to the channel. It's your boy Fanon. We're going to talk about the welterweight division. Before I get into the video though, please make sure if you're not subscribed to the channel, hit subscribe and hit the bell icon so that you can be notified of when we release more videos. Also, if you would not mind, hit the like button before you leave the video and try your best to listen to the video all the way to the end to alleviate any confusion when you comment in the comment section. But let's get to this. Keith Thurman, one-time Thurman, will be back in the ring in a couple weeks against February. I think it's the first week of February against Mario Barrios on, I do believe it's on Showtime. It's going to be on Showtime. Not sure if it's on pay-per-view or not, but it's a fight I'm looking forward to. Keith Thurman has not been in the ring for the last 2 years after since he lost to Manny Pacquiao and lost his WBA super title to Manny Pacquiao. Now, in this interview with Brian Custer, and shout out to Brian Custer, did a really great job in the interview. You can go check it out on his channel, YouTube channel. He was asked, he asked Keith Thurman about Jaron Ennis. In fact, it was really funny or interesting to me because Brian Custer kept going through and asking questions that would come from Twitter or whoever was feeding him questions at the time from boxing fans. And the question that came up a whole lot was, what about Jaron Ennis? Are you going to fight Jaron Ennis? Would you fight Jaron Ennis? Do you know who Jaron Ennis is now? Right? Just kind of getting inundating Keith Thurman with Jaron Ennis questions. So if you do not recall, Keith Thurman had previously stated that he didn't know who Jaron Ennis was, right? So that kind of put some boxing fans off and saying, man, that's kind of hard to believe that you don't know who one of the best prospects are at 147 pounds. But you know, Keith Thurman originally blew off the question and said he didn't know who he was. But this time he says, yes, I know who Jaron Ennis is. I've seen him fight, said he's a great fighter, has a great style, all of the above, right? And then he was asked if he would consider fighting Jaron Ennis. Keith Thurman took a very politically correct angle on it. And when I mean political, not just politically correct, a reasonable angle on it. But at the same time, took a little shot at Floyd Mayweather Jr. And also, I'm not quite sure if what he says really jives with what actually happened in history, especially when you consider his stance towards Errol Spence. But what he said was that right now he doesn't have a belt. So what he's going to do now is he's looking to fight Mario Barrios, and then after that, he's trying to get his hands on a guy that has the belt, whether that is Errol Spence Jr. next, or whether it is Terrence Crawford. Either way, he's aiming for the guy with the belts. But he said that what he would not do, though, is what Floyd Mayweather Jr. did to him, which was, in essence, duck him. And he goes into some detail about it and says, when he was, I think he said that, he became like a WBA champion or WBA regular champion, but regardless, he was trying to fight Adrian Brawner, but Adrian Brawner wouldn't fight him. So Adrian Brawner goes off to fight Marcus Maidana. And then Keith Thurman said, can I fight Marcus Maidana? Marcus Maidana wouldn't fight Keith Thurman because Marcus Maidana went and fought Floyd Mayweather Jr., right? And he fought him twice. Then he said, but right after that, he was told pretty quickly that he will never fight Floyd Mayweather Jr. So he was pretty much ducked by Floyd Mayweather Jr. after Floyd Mayweather Jr. Had beaten Marcus Maidana. So what he said was with Jaron Ennis that after he gets these belts, he would fight him. He wouldn't do Jaron Ennis like Floyd Mayweather Jr. did him. Now, All that sounds fine and dandy, with the grand exception of one thing. Why didn't you fight Errol Spence Jr. then? That sounds like the exact same scenario where Errol Spence Jr. was. When Errol Spence Jr. was trying to get a fight with Keith Thurman, when Keith Thurman had 2 belts. He had the WBC, he had the WBA, and I do believe he was trying to fight Keith Thurman. Errol Spence was trying to fight Keith Thurman when Keith Thurman just had the WBA. Then he got the WBC, and Errol Spence Jr. was still pressing to fight him, and Keith Thurman wouldn't fight him. So I'm not quite sure why I'm going to believe that Keith Thurman, if he was able to actually get a belt off of Errol Spence or Terrence Crawford, would then fight Jaron Ennis. It seems to me that he may be just trying to find something to say, since, people are on him so heavy. Number one, about having ducked Errol Spence Jr., and number two, about him acting like he doesn't know Jaron Ennis. However, all of that is something that is off in the future, and honestly, I think that is a bigger chance of happening than many other people think. I personally believe Keith Thurman when Keith Thurman says that the problem that he had with Manny Pacquiao, and the reason he's not a champion right now, is because of his left hand being injured, and him having to fight both Josecito Lopez and Manny Pacquiao pretty much with one hand. And so I'm going to take him at his word for that. I do believe that he was injured, right? And if that is true, and he is actually able to use his left hand, I don't count him out against either Terrence Crawford or Errol Spence Jr. Now, I wouldn't favor him to beat those guys, but I'm not going to count him out. And especially if something like, for example, if Errol Spence Jr. winds up where that retina injury, really did limit him or whatever, or Terrence Crawford, he figures out Terrence Crawford. Neither one of those guys, if Keith Thurman is all the way back, neither Errol Spence Jr. or Terrence Crawford is beating a better fighter than Keith Thurman. And one of the things that Keith Thurman talked about, like relative to Terrence Crawford, was he's like, look, man, the ESPN crew is talking about how, scary and all this stuff Terrence Crawford is after he beat Sean Porter. But he's like, look at it this way. Keith Thurman beat Sean Porter. Then Errol Spence Jr. knocked him down. And then after that, Terrence Crawford knocked him out. Some people might consider that to be a progression, right? But of Sean Porter, and not a scenario where, Terrence Crawford did something that was going to make everybody else in the weight division feel terrified of him or whatever, right? So, I think Keith Thurman would be a live underdog in the best fight that Terrence Crawford has had. I do believe that he'd be a live underdog against Errol Spence Jr. And unless Errol Spence fights Terrence Crawford first, he may be the best fighter that Terrence Crawford has faced, man. I just think that a lot of people, because he lost to Manny Pacquiao, the way that he lost to Manny Pacquiao makes sense to me, because it was a good fight with him and Manny Pacquiao. And he actually said that one of the reasons that he didn't fight Errol Spence Jr. and he fought Manny Pacquiao is because he knew that his hand wasn't together. So that's why he went the route of the Josecito Lopez fight to Manny Pacquiao. Though, when you count the money behind that situation, I don't know about that. But anyway, I just thought that was very interesting. He explained what happened with Floyd Mayweather Jr., says that he wouldn't do that to Jaron Ennis, but at the same time, I don't know, man. You did it to Errol Spence, so why wouldn't I think it would happen again? And it's a very long shot that you get your hands on both of those belts. But anyway, that's my take on the matter. You let me know what you think in the comment section. And with that, I'm out. Peace.